everyone, welcome to another episode of Deep Nature, where in this episode we'll be diving in to have a look at the deep nature of our mind in terms of operating according to absolute truth or conventional truth. Now, obviously to dive into that, we have to figure out what absolute truth is and what conventional truth is. So let's start off with there. Now, conventional truth is always relative, isn't it? I say this because if you have a look at the different places in the world where humans are born, then each of us gather the culture around us, which becomes our conventional truth. We may think it's right to do this over here, but in a different country, that may be not right, where something else might be right over there, which might not be right over here. Because we pick up these customs from our environments that we grow up in, basically that conditioning dictates that conventional truth. Now, how is absolute truth different to that? Absolute truth is universal among all of us. No matter if we're born in a different continent across the world, or the continent next to us, or the continent that we're on, we all experience that universally. Okay, so what are some examples of conventional truth and absolute truth? Conventional truths might be how we, which side of the road do we drive on? Now, some countries, they drive on the left-hand side, and then some countries drive on the right-hand side. But based on the convention or the customs that have been set up in that community, that is a conventional truth, which is relative to that environment. Now, an absolute truth is the process of thought. That is common among all of us. And that's why I said that previous word, universal, because among all humans, as well as animals, that process of thought is common. Now, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because this may be something that you haven't actually come across before, but I think it really helps to understand this stuff, because once we dive into it a little deeper, the process of thought, the absolute truth, I think you'll get a good understanding of if it's better to have a mind that's operating according to the absolute truth, or if it's better to have a mind that's operating according to conventional truth. Let's have a look at both so we can compare them, and then I'm not going to tell you which one's better, but I believe that you yourself can come to a conclusion, or I guess you can see that which actual way of being is helping you in your everyday life. That was a lot to get out. Okay, so basically, what is behaving relative to the absolute truth? If we think of the absolute truth, like I said before, being the process of thought, then we always have to remember and keep close to us the 4 golden facts, which is number 1, thought, number 2, the arising of thought, number 3, the cessation of thought, and number 4, the path we have to go to seize thought completely. Okay, so that's the absolute truth. And, how do we practice it? Practicing it involves that we we have to have this vision where every thought, as it arises, we have to see that it ceases. So it comes, it's gone. There's a birth, there's a death. There's an arising, and then there's a cessation. So what happens when this vision is continued through our life? Well, the arising and cessation happening together, you can think of it as arising, coming up, cessation, going down. So if it's happening together, instead of having an arising and then a cessation, it's more of a arising and cessation that happens together. As it has come, it's also gone. Okay, so behaving with awareness of the absolute truth, the mind comes to peace. This is because that as a thought has come up, we've seized it. Because of that cessation, our mind is not occupied with the past, the memory, or the future. And because the mind has been silenced, in other words, the chatter has stopped, there's peace. Now, that's on one hand. The other hand is the conventional truth, which is collecting, a mind that collects, okay? So there's two types of people. One type, let's go. Everything that they hear, they see, they take in, but as they take it in, they also let it go. Now, the other type is the one that behaves according to conventional truths. They collect memory and they do not let go. Now, what happens to a mind that collects and collects and collects? Think about it like a computer. As the memory increases and increases and increases, what happens? Does it become slower? It may, yeah? And most times it does. Similarly, you may have observed in yourself when our memory increases and increases and increases because our attention's over there and over there and over there, because we're attached to every single thing around us, that collection of memory becomes heavy and noisy. And we cannot operate in a noisy or heavy, if a noisy or heavy mind is where our attention is. However, in contrast, an empty mind has room to operate. It can function in everyday life because it can take in information, and then it can also act based on those facts. However, it does not retain that, it gets rid of it. There's a process of things coming in and things going out. So I hope that has come across to you why we should behave based on the absolute truth, which is the operation of thought, as opposed to the conventional truth, which may be the accumulation of different types of knowledge as memory and really keeping it forever, so not letting it go. Because I don't know how many times to say it, but an empty mind is a useful mind. A full mind is not a useful mind. Okay, so I'll leave you with one last thing. When we behave with the awareness of the absolute truth, which is, knowing that every thought is arising and ceasing at the same time, then we automatically develop 8 skills. And because the mind is quiet, the mind does not have any things that distracting it, what happens is that skillful view is developed, skillful concepts, skillful speech, skillful action, skillful living, skillful effort, skillful alertness, skillful concentration. These are the 8 that develop automatically by following the path of the absolute truth. And that is those 4 golden facts that we keep close to our heart, which is thought, the arising of thought, the cessation of thought, and the path we have to walk to seize thought altogether, which is constantly seeing the arising and cessation happening together. Okay, so that was a short talk about the absolute truth versus the conventional truth. And I hope from the information that I've conveyed that you have the right tools to decide if it's better to behave according to the absolute truth or the conventional truth. I'll catch you guys on the next one.